Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back to the show. We are joined once again by Bonnie Ring, our Woman of the Year. We're talking today about the work she does. And of course, so many of you out there may need a licensed psychologist, maybe wondering how. Why? What are some of the types of things that a psychologist can help me with? So she's here today to answer those questions. And again, as Woman of the Year, we want to welcome her back. She's also an author, let alone licensed psychologist, also a priest, reverend. She does a lot. From Half Moon Bay, California, please welcome the beautiful Bonnie Ring back today. How are you?
I'm great. The sun's shining, and what can you ask for?
Beautiful. I hope to visit her one of these days. I got to Google where she lives, and it's amazing. My goodness. So for those new time listeners, let's, by the way, tell them a little about what you do, why you're honored as Woman of the Year because of your past accolades. Would you mind sharing a little bit? And then we'll dive into details to help people today maybe discover why they need or could use the benefits of a psychologist.
Sure. I think it's interesting that I didn't plan to be a psychologist. But I knew what they did because I started therapy my second year of college because I was not doing well academically and it was making me very depressed. So I certainly knew what psychologists could do, but I got interested in college in the civil rights movement. And that was all that I could think about. I worked with the National Conference of Christians and Jews, and I worked with several SNCC, and I worked with several organizations that were involved in improving conditions for people who were in minority status. And yet, when I started grad school, I was planning on a career in what they called then intergroup relations education, which meant communicating across cultural and racial boundaries. And that was the year that Black Power was coined. And so intergroup relations education went to the back burner, and Bonnie had to find a new life. So what I did, given the resources of Boston University and then UCLA, was I learned about all the methods that adults use to grow and change and develop as people. I studied group dynamics, I studied organizational development, I studied community relations, and I started on doing my dissertation when I moved to UC Santa Cruz when my husband became assistant chancellor. And he was given a task that he handed over to me. The task was, given that this is an unusual college design of cluster colleges, what kind of counseling service should we have for the students? At that time, they only had one psychiatrist. And so I helped him formulate a counseling service that reached out to students and staff and faculty where they were, i.e., in each college. And one day I was having coffee with the wife of the provost of College 4, which became Merrill College. And Bill walked in, he's the provost, and he said, "Oh, Bonnie, I'm so glad to see you. I need you to come work for me." And I just kind of looked at him. And I said, "But I'm writing my dissertation. I'm not prepared to get a job right now." "Oh, you can do both," he said. "You can do both." "Well, let me think about that." And it was a job I couldn't turn down. If I had created a dream job, it would have been that, because I got to work with the students when they needed me. My office was right off the dining room, so that they passed back and forth for meals. And I'd find myself coming in the morning, and somebody be sitting in front of the door saying, "Can I see you?" And I couldn't go to the bathroom without taking my calendar with me, because people would say they wanted to see me. And that's how I became a psychologist. And I think it formed me in a way that is unusual. Teenagers don't, I wanted to use a 4-letter word. They don't deal with garbage. They want real stuff. And so I learned very quickly to be real with them, say what I thought, say what I felt, And I was in tune with the most famous psychologist of the time, Carl Rogers, who said authenticity and positive regard were two of the necessary conditions for a good psychotherapist. So if you're looking for a psychologist, the first thing I'm going to say is go to Psychology Today's website. You may not read the magazine. It may not be something you want to read, but they have a website that has the resumes of therapists across the country. So you can punch in where you are, Half Moon Bay in my case, and my name will come up, and so will my description of myself. And I think it's in reading those descriptions, you begin to get a clue as to what you're looking for. And some of it is, how relatable are they? How informal are they? How direct are they in terms of feedback and advice? How old are they? How long have they been in practice? In my case, it's going to go to 50 years next year. It's a long time. And I've seen just about everything you could imagine. So nothing surprises me.
Oh, well, thank you. By the way, Psychology Today. So it's worldwide, or
it's, well, I know it's
United
US.
States wide. So we could be in any
worldwide.
state. Mm-hmm.
And it's just really easy. You Google Psychology Today, and then the website comes up, and then you put in where you are and what you're looking for. And that's where I get the majority of my new clients. There are several other websites. Thurvo has one. So I don't remember the names of the others, but they all charge. So you pay a monthly fee as a therapist to be on their list, and then you just respond to each email that you get as to whether you think you're appropriate. And what the client does is they fill out a little form about what they're looking for.
Okay.
What kind of therapy they need. Are they in grief? Are they anxious? Are they full of stress? Do they have a bad job connection? What's going on with them? And then it matches. So you look for somebody that has the kind of experience that would understand you and help you cope with whatever it is you're coping with. And, at any given time, 20% of the US population needs a therapist.
Yeah.
At any time.
Do therapists even need therapists?
Oh, yes.
We got to make that clear, right?
I don't think I could have gotten through COVID without therapists.
Mm-hmm.
Because as an older person, I was even more quarantined than most, and I was isolated. So I had somebody to talk to on Zoom every week for the entire 3 years. And It was changing personnel as they've had babies and changed their lives. But I got the help I needed, and I felt the support, and it enabled me to support others going through the same experience.
Good. Perfect to know that we're not alone, and all of us can benefit from the help of a licensed psychologist. So again, we're talking today about who needs one, why would you need one, where can we find one? And by the way, yourself personally, I know you're based out of California, so you can work with people where specifically, just so we know.
I am only licensed in the state of California. So recently, a former client from California moved to Colorado, I think. And I had to say, this session is free. I can't work with you because I'm not licensed in your state. As long as when you come to California, you can see me. But if you're not in California, I can't see you. Other therapists have multiple licenses. I never needed one. There's more than 50 million people in California, so who needs to be out of state? I do have a few clients in other countries, but that's a perfect exchange system, so that has nothing to do with licensure. And I think you need to give any new therapist 4 to 6 sessions before you make a decision.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that you can have a horrible first session and still go back. No, if
Mhm.
you have a horrible first session, trust your gut, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
But if it just seems to be slow going and you're a little anxious and you're not really sure of yourself, then give the therapist 4 to 6 sessions to see whether you can make a real deep connection. And it's the depth of the connection, the freedom to say exactly what you feel and what you need, and to express the feelings that you have. You know, so many of us were brought up in families where we were taught not to cry.
Yeah.
Cry is bad.
Mhm.
And so it's very awkward to suddenly start telling your story and the tears come and you think, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Yes, you should be doing this. This is the one
Mhm.
person in the world that can accept your tears and not be undone by them.
Aw, beautiful. Dr. Bonnie Ring, how do we reach out to you, by the way? What is your contact information? It's
I
one thing
would
we
love
didn't
it if you
establish
would
yet.
reach out to me. The easiest way is Dr. Bonnie Ring, drbonniering at comcast.net. You can email me and I will answer. You can go to my website, drbonniering.com, and learn about me and write me from that. You can call me at 650 560 8590. That's an easy number, 560 650 560 8590. So you can email me, you can phone me, and you can learn about me from my websites. There's another website that's called Dr. Bonnie Ring's Books. And that has my 2 books, one on women who knew Jesus and another on little Mary Magdalene for children.
Aw.
So those are all the ways to reach me. And I gladly receive phone calls and emails and letters for that matter. I don't give out my home address, but you can find me all these other ways.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, let's continue the conversation. Again, we're here with our Hall of Famer, Dr. Bonnie Ring, talking today as she is a licensed psychologist and she's helping so many people overcome a lot. And still to this day, you know, people might say, well, what are the benefits of a psychologist? What's the difference between a psychiatrist? Can you just share that? I think that's
Yeah,
also important.
that's important. Psychiatrists are medical doctors, which means they can prescribe drugs. And there are psychological conditions for which drugs are really important. Anxiety is one of them, so is depression. Not everybody responds to medication. Some people require both medication and therapy, and some people can just do therapy without medication. I think I recently read Prince Harry's autobiography called Spare.
Oh, I
And
did not yet. Tell me, tell me, tell me.
oh, it's a great book, Jill. It's so honest.
Mm-hmm.
And he had anxiety, panic attacks. He had
I wonder why.
um,
Yeah.
uh, a sense of isolation and aloneness, a sense of rejection. Once his mother died, he didn't believe she died. He thought she disappeared because she was so unhappy. And so it was years of his describing these symptoms until he told his brother his symptoms. Nobody suggested to him that he see a therapist.
Ah.
He was a prince. Princes
Mm-hmm.
don't see therapists, right? Well, his mother had seen a therapist. She lived a crazy life, and a therapist was necessary. So I like to tell people about Prince Harry because I think he's typical.
Mm-hmm.
He's typical of his generation that only crazy people go to therapists. Well, no. You don't have to be crazy to see a therapist. In fact, if you're really crazy, a therapist might not do you very much good, but medication could,
Yep.
and
Mm-hmm.
hospitalization could help. So here are some of the things that people call and talk about. They're in a relationship and they're not feeling heard or desired. Those are 2 biggies.
Yeah.
To be heard means that you feel cared about.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things a therapist provides is an attentive listener, somebody who will not only hear what you say, but say it back to you so that you know they've heard you. Another thing that causes people to seek a therapist is they're very unhappy and they don't know why. But if you start analyzing their situation, it's either their work is not satisfying, or their relationships are not satisfying, or their relationship with their parents is negative and critical. And getting the courage to separate from those people who are toxic and engaging in good relationships that are open and honest and trusting, that's the goal. So one of the things that a therapist provides you with is a model relationship. You can say anything.
Yeah.
And they will respond to you. They will take you seriously. Another thing that causes people to see therapists are bad job situations.
Okay.
I've worked with a number of people, and first of all, the most a difficult situation to get into with a boss is one that's like your parents. And if they're critical parents, then they make you feel worthless.
Yeah.
They make you feel unappreciated. And they make you feel like you can't do enough that's good.
Yeah.
Those feelings are such strong feelings that no matter how much you're being paid, how much recognition you're getting, if it doesn't feel right, it isn't right.
Yeah.
There are other jobs out there. There are a lot of people that are depressed today because they've stopped working. They've gotten angry at the whole economic system in our country.
Yeah.
And, the kinds of jobs that they're qualified for don't interest them, and the jobs that they want to do, they don't have the qualifications for. So joblessness and changing jobs and finding a more fitting vocation. I encourage people, for instance, to go to their local community college and take their vocational tests.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's free. Certainly it's not expensive. And it's a way to compare your interests with everybody in all kinds of vocations, and it will pop up with suggestions you may never have heard of.
Yeah.
The other thing to look at is, what age group are you most comfortable with? Are they people your age, people younger than you, people older than you? And why is it? Do you have empathy for them?
Yeah.
And that's a real important criteria in choosing a job, that you have empathy for the consumer and the customer, and as well as the employee. So we talk about our work relationships. We talk about our love relationships. We talk about our family relationships. We talk about families that we're beginning with our own children, like you and I talked last week about football. Those are the things that you see a therapist for. There's nothing off bounds. If you're going to threaten the therapist, that's off bounds.
Yeah. And
that needs to get reported. But anything you say that is honest and personal, that's what you need to talk about. And you'll feel better after an hour of really telling your story.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much. All right, Dr. Bonnie Ring, what else did you want to discuss today about seeking help and guidance from a licensed psychologist?
Well, I think the other thing to talk about is cost.
Okay.
And there are, I think there's a real problem in our American culture, because all professionals now make a lot of money. Their skills are rare. And so you can find fees anywhere from $150 to $250 an hour. I'm a Kaiser patient, and I have never paid for therapy with Kaiser. because my insurance covers it. That's a tremendous advantage. There are other insurance companies, Cigna, Aetna, Blue Shield, Blue Cross is not the only pays like 50% of your cost. So it's very important to know what you can afford.
Yeah.
And to ask about fees and ask about discounts.
Yeah.
Some people have a sliding scale. And so if you have a limited budget, that's where you're going to find yourself looking for a therapist.
Yeah. And let me ask you though, insurance does pay for some of it, depending on, right, which doctors accept it, which yeah.
Yes. It's a closed route. If you're lucky and you work for a company that pays dearly for insurance for their employees, you will have one of the high paying ones. If you're in a company where they give you minimal health insurance, you will find that they either don't cover it or they cover it minimally, or maybe at most 50%. But 50% of $200 is still $100 or so.
Yeah.
A lot of money. And I have to say it's worth it. You know, I don't know how people get through the lives we live without occasionally turning to a therapist for understanding and insight as to why they feel the way they feel and what they can do about it. I don't like people to stay stuck. And I work with people who I believe want to change, want to fix whatever is broken, and want to do something differently to make their lives better. And if you don't have that kind of motivation, you won't stick with it. Just won't. You'll be resentful of the cost, of the time. But really, there is no substitute. And a spouse is not your therapist. As much as you can take whatever you want to your spouse, they're too caught up in your life to give you independent advice.
Yeah.
So that's not the best resource. Girlfriends, guy friends, sometimes they can do it. I know certain people that just have a knack caring for others, and they are their friends' therapists. But if you don't have that, then pick up the telephone and call somebody, or go online and go to Psych Today and find somebody that work with you. I think we're almost out of time.
We are. 2 minutes left. Go ahead, hon.
Okay, how to reach me? drbonnyring@comcast.net.
Perfect.
That's my email address. 650-560-8590. That's my telephone number. I respond to both, and I would love to hear from you.
Perfect.
And if you want to know more about me, go to drbonnyring.com, my website, and you'll learn a lot about my background and my interests. And if you want to know about my books, go to drbonnyringsbooks.com. So that's all the ways you can reach me.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Jill.
Always a pleasure to have you here. Looking forward to the next time we get to connect. Okay. Thank you again on being our Woman of the Year, and for all your support and knowledge and helping others out there with what you do. A great conversation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill.
Bye, Bonnie. Have a great day.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.